So in the ninth year after the Hijrah, something incredible starts to happen. It's not a year defined by big, flashy battles. Instead, it's a year of people, delegations pouring into Medina from every corner of Arabia. This became known as the Year of Delegations, and it marks this huge shift from, building a community to actually establishing a nation. So how on earth was this massive transition pulled off? Well, let's dig into the blueprint that came out of this amazing year.
I mean, it's a massive question, isn't it? Do you do it with brute force? Do you pile on a mountain of complicated laws? Or is there another way? The events of this one year give us this fascinating model, a way of building a state that was both deeply spiritual and incredibly practical.
So, here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to look at 4 foundational pillars that really came into focus during this time. First, how trust became the ultimate currency. Second, the wisdom behind the teaching. Third, how the real goal was conquest of the heart, not of land. And finally, how they built the practical nuts and bolts of a truly just state.
All right, so our first pillar kicks off with a really fascinating encounter. A big, very scholarly delegation of Christians from the city of Najran travels to Medina to debate and speak with the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him.
So after days of deep conversation, they still had their theological differences. The Prophet then proposed something called a mubahala, basically a solemn prayer where both sides ask God to curse whoever is lying. Now the thing is, the Najran delegation knew their history. They knew that challenging a true prophet like this was a terrifying idea. So they made a wise call. They declined the challenge, and instead they chose to make a peace treaty.
And this is where it gets really interesting. They had a specific request to manage the terms of the treaty. They didn't ask for a tough guy or a brilliant accountant. They asked for something they considered way more valuable. A trustworthy man. A man of absolute, rock-solid integrity. You can just imagine the scene, right? The companions of the Prophet are all there, and every single one of them is hoping, praying that they'll be the one chosen for this incredible honor.
And in that quiet, tense moment, the Prophet looks over all of his closest friends, and he picks out one man. He says, "Stand up, O Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah." And then he gives him this title, a title that would stick with him for all of history. Here is the trustworthy one of this nation, the Amin of this ummah. Wow.
You see, this wasn't just some random political appointment. This was a lesson in action. It was a physical demonstration of a core principle of this new nation, one that's rooted right here in this divine guidance. Leadership, responsibility, these are sacred trusts, and they have to be given to the people who are truly worthy of them.
Okay, so trust is the bedrock. What's next? Well, the next challenge was growth, but not growth through conquest, growth through education. And there's no better example of this than the mission to Yemen.
So the Prophet sends one of his most brilliant scholars, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, down to Yemen. And his mission is crystal clear. He's going as a leader, a judge, but more than anything else, as a teacher. He was walking into a land with a really ancient culture, with established Jewish and Christian communities, so his approach had to be incredibly wise and precise.
And get this, the Prophet gave him a very specific, step-by-step curriculum. He told him, first invite them to the oneness of God, and only if they accept that do you move on to teaching them about the 5 daily prayers. And then, only if they accept that do you teach them about zakat or compulsory charity. This is absolutely key. Faith comes before rituals. Belief comes before law. It's a gradual, patient, human-first approach. And this entire structured curriculum was wrapped in this beautiful, overarching philosophy of compassion. This instruction that he gave to Mu'adh and another companion, Abu Musa, it just reveals the soul of the entire mission. Be easy on people. Give them good news. Don't create barriers that push them away. It's all about invitation, not imposition.
And again, this brilliant method wasn't just some clever strategy he came up with on the spot. It is a direct, practical application of a divine command. The Prophet was literally teaching his companions how to live this verse, how to call people with wisdom, how to use beautiful instruction, and how to build a real foundation of understanding, one careful step at a time. Okay, so we've got trust and we've got wisdom as the cornerstones. But what about the tribes that were a little more resistant? Surely this is where the army comes in, right? Well, even here, the approach was remarkably different. It prioritized what you can really only call conquests of the heart. Let's take the mission of Khalid ibn Al-Waleed. I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest military generals in all of history. He's sent to the tribe of Banu al-Harith. But his orders? They weren't attack on sight. His primary command was to invite them to Islam and then wait. For 3 whole days. An attack was the absolute last-ditch resort. And what happened? The people of Banu Harith, they listened.
And they accepted. And just like that, Khalid the warrior became Khalid the teacher. He literally settled down among them and started teaching them about their new faith. A potential battlefield was transformed into a classroom.
And this wasn't a one-off thing. The same pattern keeps repeating. The Prophet sends Ali ibn Abi Talib to Yemen. He gathers the whole Hamdan tribe, and he simply reads them a letter from the Prophet. The result was just stunning. The entire tribe accepted Islam, all of them, in a single day. Not one sword had to be drawn.
Now, when the letter from Ali with this incredible news got back to the Prophet, his reaction tells you everything you need to know. He didn't throw a parade for a strategic win or celebrate new territory. He immediately fell to the ground in a prostration of pure, humble gratitude to God. That shows us what the real victory was. The most cherished conquest was always winning the hearts of people through peace.
So, you have these beautiful principles of trust, wisdom, and mercy firmly in place. But how do you make them stick? How do you institutionalize them? Well, this final pillar shows us how these values were woven right into the very fabric of the state to make sure they could last and grow.
The Prophet started organizing this rapidly expanding nation with very clear roles. He appointed governors for different regions, like Mecca and Yemen. He sent out dedicated teachers. He assigned specific zakat collectors to make sure that the social welfare system was managed fairly and transparently. The message was clear. Islam isn't just about private worship. It's about public order and justice for all.
Now, this next part is just genius, and it's so relevant for us today. How do you stop your leaders from becoming corrupt? Well, you make them public servants in the truest sense of the word. The Prophet established the practice of paying his governors a state salary.
And this wasn't just a theory. We have the records. For example, Atta ibn Usayd, the young man he appointed as governor of Makkah, was given a salary of 1 dirham a day. This wasn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It was a wage to cover his basic needs so he could focus 100% of his energy on serving the people.
The logic here is so simple, but so profound. The Prophet literally said that if a state worker doesn't have a house, he should be given one. If he's not married, the state should help him get married. If he needs a way to get around, he should be provided for. By taking care of a leader's basic needs from the get-go, you remove the main reason they might be tempted by bribery or corruption.
And all of these systems, the appointments, the salaries, the accountability, they were all practical tools designed to achieve a core spiritual goal. The entire structure of the state was being built to create a society founded on justice. Because, as the Quran tells us, being just is the closest thing we can get to righteousness itself.
So, as we look back at this incredible year of delegations, a really clear blueprint comes into view. This was a nation built not just with rules, but with relationships. A place where trust was the real currency. Education was the tool for expansion. Mercy was the main strategy, and systemic justice was the ultimate goal. It was a model for leadership centered on integrity and human dignity. And that leaves us with a pretty big question for our own time, doesn't it? What can our modern world learn from a foundation built so solidly on these timeless principles?